another video from Mark's Reviews and Tutorials, and today we're looking at maximising garage space. I've got a garage here. It's only 5.5 metres across. Normal garage is 6.5 metres, so you normally get a bit of space beside your cars, but not here. I've had a shelf sitting on this wall here, but it's just making everything too tight. When we bring the two cars in, we're squashing past and rubbing against the car. So that shelf there has come out, but I need the shelving space. So what I'm actually going to do is chop that shelf up and remount it, and I'm going to put it up here above head height so that you can, when you get out of the car or when you're opening the doors, you've got that room under the shelf to open doors, and to get out you don't have to duck or anything like that. You can get out and just walk out, and I'll still have some storage space up high here. On this side the garage door has got a bit of space, so the garage door won't come into the equation, but I'm wanting to be able to still use that up high storage space. I have another shelf I mounted over there. That's a much bigger, much thicker shelf. If you want to have a look at how I did that, have a look at this link here, and you'll see how I attached that and got it all up. What I've done on this one, I'm just going to use some brackets, and I'm not going to put heavy weights up here. I actually bought these brackets here. They're called a London bracket. They are really cheap, just a couple of dollars each, and we're just going to screw direct into the bearers. And I've used a stud finder. I don't have one of those here, but you see there's little marks on the wall. I've marked off the studs already, so I know exactly where they are. So we'll be mounting those brackets onto the wall, putting the shelf on and putting the storage up there so that we can now walk under that. And again, you see, so far as walking underneath, there's no crack in your head on a bracket that runs between the vertical and the horizontal. So here's the shelf that was there. See, it's a dodgy old broken shelf. It came from a work that I was at like 20 years ago. They threw it out, so I brought it home, and it's been used for all sorts of things since then. What I'm going to do is get the two biggest shelves and mount them up high. So I need to cut this off here. Now, cutting off a shelf like that, you can't use a circular saw. You could certainly do it with a hand saw, a panel saw, just rip through. But what I'm going to do is do it with a death wheel. That's an angle grinder with a little cutting blade on it. Now, this is a blade that's meant for metal. It's not supposed to cut wood, blah, blah, blah. It's going to smoke and carry on, but it's also going to do the job in a couple of seconds. See, this is a cutting wheel and not an angle grinder wheel, but you see how thin that is? That's a cutting wheel. And I will have safety glasses on. I'm wearing gloves because these things spin very, very fast with very little protection. Only the back half of the blade is protected, but we'll be taking care. And that's what I'm going to do to cut this shelf up. So we're going to cut it down, and I'll use the top bits in those top two shelves and get that extra width. So still keeping my shelving, but getting the width so we can get out of the car and walk past, not being so super tight like it is now. It is a bit cold, hence the beanie. So here we go. I'm thinking this is going to smoke like crazy, but I can get that within a centimetre of the boards here. If I use a circular saw, I'll be way down here, and it'll be on a funny angle. So this is the tool I'm going to use. So there you go. I went too hard. I need to work my way down and make sure I stay flat. You see, I went too hard and managed to break off the center of the wheel. So I've got another one though. I'll mount that on. So you just need to go slow and take it easy. This is a steel cut-off wheel, so it will do this, but you can see plenty of smoke, plenty of fun, and we'll get this done. But it was still a little bit too far, because I'm going to be walking underneath this, walking with a head under it. So I decided to get it with a panel saw, and just trim that down. Now, you could have just done it from the panel saw right at the start. My panel saw's actually got the straight edge, which keeps it square. If you've got one without that, you do better cutting through something like that, otherwise it just gets to there and stops. So I needed to cut it off first, but that's trimmed it up nicely. And up the other end, I just cut it closer, and by that time I'd seen how this shelf was put together, that the side strut here comes through just on half and the other half sits on the shelf. So you've only actually got to cut half of it when it comes to this shelf. But that's looking good, and that was previously broken off, that section there. And so that part there is now the bit that is going to mount up there. So next thing is a couple of brackets, then we can lift the shelf up and we'll be looking awesome. Alright, so here we go. We're going to mount this onto the wall. I've checked out the height. Now again, these brackets they're not the same length. There's a shorter and a longer. So I've walked over to the shelf because I know I can get 3 screws in. That'll be enough to hold it up. I've walked over the shelf, so you can choose, which way you want that to go. I'm going to go with the shorter on the wall and the longer on the shelf, just because the shelf comes out to about here. It's just to give it as much leverage as possible. And again, because of the shelf I've chosen without the angle piece, it's not super duper strong. It is very strong and surprisingly strong, but I'm not going to be able to put huge weights up here. So here we go. We're just going to screw it straight on, no mucking around. I've marked out the height, and this was quite simply by just working out, where I'm not going to bang my head, because that's exactly what I want, as low as possible. So the shelf, that's pretty high, and it's coming in under the door. I don't want it to foul with that, and I'd like to be able to get stuff up on the top level as well. Well, I accept that's going to be pretty inaccessible. And I've got my marks here where the bearers are, so we're just going to drill straight in. So this, I hope, is going to be remarkably easy. So I'm going to put that into there. That can hang down for this first screw. I'm actually going to drive it through to make sure there's plenty of room there. And I want to drive this trying not to get it to skip, because skipping is going to both destroy the screwdriver tip and also the screw. Need a bit more than that. And you can, in this instance, back out and drive it in again. So there we go. I won't drive it right home yet. I'm trying to get away with pre-drilling. There's pine behind there, so I should be okay to be able to cheat and not pre-drill the holes. And when it comes to the next shelf, okay, I've missed the bearer, so there's a piece of information that we need. That's just gone through the drywall or the plaster and not hit the bearer, so that's mark is not exactly in the center. It's funny, it's here, so it must be right in the edge there. So there's a bit of real life vision for you. We're going to have to, I can't move that over any. I can either screw that in on an angle and skew it in, which I think is what I'm going to do. I don't want to have holes everywhere. So I'll just make sure that this next one's going to go in. It is. It's going in nicely. Those two are in. Now, the third screw, because I'll come, so the bearer is obviously here, it's over a little bit. I will try and put it in on an angle, see if I can't get into the timber. Not in that one. Depends on how far across it is, of course. So the stud finder has let me down there. I've marked that exactly where it said was the centre, and it's been a little bit off. So, So there we go, we've got a screw jarred in on the angle there, and now that's nice and super tight. We've got 1, 2, 3 into the bearer. So yeah, if I had have moved that across a little bit, I would have had holes here and here. So I prefer to have one screw head a little bit crooked rather than those holes. Now the next one, I'm going to get a level. The next bearer is here, and then obviously there's one there. But we can actually use the level so that we end up with a level shelf. So there's the mark where the bearer is, and line up exactly on the center of that, and then we adjust this until the bubble is right in the middle like that. Make sure we're lined up with the center of our mark. Now we can mark the bottom hole, and we know that we're going to be exactly level across. But I'm actually going to put, excuse me, I'm going to put my second bracket over here. So my level's not big enough for that. So what I need is a straight edge. I'll go and grab a board with a straight edge, which I can sit on there, and then put the level on top, and then I'll do the height marker on this guy. Okay, so here we go. We've got our straight edge. Put that up there. And we're wanting to bring this. So now the level's going to sit on top of there. And that will enable us to get level between these two shelf brackets. So we adjust it until the bubble is right in the middle, which is there. And then we get this bracket right in the middle of where the stud finder said the stud is. Check that again. There. Then we can mark this screw. There we go, there's level. We know she's level between the brackets, so we'll have a level shelf, and we know that we're lined up perfectly with the stud finder. So that's how you place. You can also just measure from the floor, but that's the method I'm going to use today. I'm mounting the first screw in upside down because I don't want to have it swing down and mark the wall. So I'm just going to let gravity do its thing. And I did go on a little bit of an angle because the stud's not that wide here. So I'm just bringing them in both in a little bit of an angle to make sure it lights well and strongly. So super tight, come out of it, and back in. Beautiful. Same with this, come out, drive in, that's tight as is that. Now the screws I'm using here, I am using 8 to 10 by 50, so 50 mil, that's 2 inches, so they're 2 inches long, and they're chipboard screws. I use that because of the type of thread. For the handyman work that I do, I want a nice big bitey thread that'll go in and hold. So they're the ones, it's just a general purpose screw. I've used those on hardwood and all sorts of things. Again, with a big open thread like that, it'll go into hardwood, much more chance without drilling. So I use these a lot, and they are nice and strong. So now we just got to lift that shelf into place. And there's a bit of weight in the shelf itself. So there it is. That's how it's going to sit when we screw it into place. You can see there's not a lot of room up the top, but that's okay. I still want that second shelf up there for poking things right up the top. So I put that third bracket up to hold it, so we can put a bit of stuff up there and know that it's going to stand strong. And now what we need to do is choose some screws to mount in here. We're not going to use the same screws because these big long guys are all about going into the bearer. Here, the screw has only got the thickness of the shelf, so, and a very thin shelf bracket. So we've got to make sure we choose a screw which is not going to stick through up here. So it'll just be a little short guy, and that's just holding this in place from the vertical movement. It's not doing anything structural. The other thing we need to do is there's this bracket up here. It's an angle bracket, so we just need to cut a slot, and yeah, you got it. The death wheel's perfect for that, or the handsaw. I'll just mark off where that is. I'm just going to decide where I want that shelf to be, and then we'll cut a slot in there. That'll sit back in place. That'll also stop it from moving side to side, which will help it a little bit, and then we can start to put the gear up there. Okay, so I've cut the two slots. I just started off with a death wheel because it's easy, and then I used the panel saw just to cut them down to the depth. And I've got a narrow little thing here that needs to be broken out, and what I'm going to do is actually just use a nail. I'm just going to go to the bottom where I want it broken out and tap the nail in because it's too small for a chisel, and bang, look at that. And if you want to square it up, come back from the other side, just knock it in, and you got yourself a square little thing. It's always going to split at that point because it's just too narrow to hold. So I don't have a chisel that small, it's only very, very small. And there we've got our slit, so now that metal bracing bar is going to go in there. Okay, so I've cut that slot out, and now lift this up into place. Trying to keep the weight, here we go. Keep the weight even on your brackets, don't put all the weight on one bracket and bend it or whatever. So that is looking great. The slot's working, so that's sitting back now square, and the shelf is working. Yep, that's all good. So here is another tip, just a quick tip for doing things in a hurry. I've got little screws to hold this in, but they've got a normal bladed part on the head. So rather than, and they don't go too well with a driver. I do have a driver bit for that, but they don't drive too well. So I'm just going to put them in with a hand screwdriver, just a manual screwdriver. It looks like that. But to pre-drill the holes, because I've got all this set up and it's quick, I am just going to drive these screws. Obviously they're too big, but this wood's pretty hard. So I'm going to use this to pre-drill these holes, because you can just use the screw to enlarge these holes. It's just a little cheat, if you like, or a smart or something like that, that I'm trying to make these jobs as easy as possible. Of course you can also get a drill and drill it, but the drill and the screwdrivers are all sitting right there at my feet, so that's easier. There we go, and then we just drive that in. And this is a locator. You don't want this moving forward or anything like that, so it's just going to hold this in place. As I said, the strength is coming from the bracket, but it's going to hold the shelf tight. And that was impossible before when I tried it without the hole, and now we're able to screw him right up and do good. Now, got a couple of holes to put, nails to pull out here. Have a look, I'll put a link in the video for what to do when you're pulling out nails, to give you an in-depth look at that. Okay, so the shelf is up, but I'm actually not happy with the installation. This is moving around too much, and if I start to put weight up on here, that's going to start to rock forward. So I'm going to attach this back here. I have a little bracket, something I've had lying around for a long time, and I'm actually going to, I've got my stud mark still here from that, so I'm just going to put this in the middle. It's going to enable me to hold that back on the wall, and when it's back, all of the weight will be square, and pulling straight down. So straight down on these screws, which are not going to break and make the thing super strong. If it starts to rock forward and tip forward, then all of a sudden it's peeling and pulling, and it's very different stresses. You want to keep it square and straight so it stays strong. So I'm just going to knock that in, which will hold that back, which will make the whole thing super strong.